What's up, my skeptical and ghost hunting friends? Welcome to another edition of Ghosts in the Machine. And in this episode, I'm going to focus on one particular ghost hunting gadget. Now, eventually, I'm going to try to do videos for each ghost hunting gadget that's out there, that's popular, such as EMF detectors and Radio Shack hacks. That's what they're called, ghost boxes, and overpriced cat toys that people sell as ghost hunting devices. Even laser grids. Ooh, look at that. Ooh. Overall, these really work just as much as a PKA meter from Ghostbusters. That's the efficiency and accuracy of these devices. It's not much, if at all. But in this episode, I'm going to focus on one of the most popular ghost hunting devices, and that is the Xbox Kinect, which has been dubbed the SLS camera, and it's sold by ghost hunting companies. And I say companies loosely because it's usually just one or two guys that are building these in their basement or garage. But we're going to focus on this, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about it. I'm going to tell you how it works, the history of it, and we're going to do some tests. And I'm going to show you what this sees when it looks out into the environment. And then all the things that ghost hunters do wrong when they use it. So let's get into it. All right. So where did the Xbox Kinect come from? Where did it come from? How did it get into the ghost hunting thing? So basically, it was developed by Microsoft for the Xbox 360 gaming console, and it was launched in November 4th, 2010. At least in North America, it was. It was followed up 4 years later with the Kinect 2, which is the 2.0 version, which didn't last long though. Basically, it was a way for Xbox to compete with Nintendo, because Nintendo Wii had launched and it had the little gaming controls where you could actually walk around and it would sense movement. So Xbox was trying to compete with that and developed the Kinect system, which uses infrared light to track a body. So basically, you became the controller, the entire controller for the game. You can use your hands to do certain commands, but then it registered your entire body as the player, as you were the avatar, literally, and you could play the game like surfing games and sports games and stuff, all from the comfort of your living room. Games such as Dance Party USA and other ones like that. There was a Star Wars version, which that's what I did. But basically, you could get up and dance and get some exercise while still playing video games. So how did it become part of the ghost hunter's arsenal? It's their toolkit, their pelican cases that they love to drag into ghost hunts and look scientific. Basically, the movie Paranormal Activity really launched the popularity of it. In October of 2012, Paranormal Activity number 4 came out in theaters, and it had scenes in it where they used the Xbox Kinect, and for some reason, they kept the Kinect on all the time, like through the whole movie, probably for the plot, to make it spooky. So during the film, and you can see in the cutscenes here, that the little kid and other people would come down and they would have footage of the Kinect on, so you see all the dots, and it gave a real spooky feel to it. It gave a real sense of like, ooh, this is eeriness. It's dark, but they have laser lights and you can barely see, and it's pretty cool. Plus, they have the little alien part, the little alien creature, demon thing, whatever it is, sneak down behind the boy. And that freaked people out. That freaked out on audiences. So naturally, ghost hunters saw this and said, "Ho, there's a tool we can use. We can do this. It's Paranormal Activity. It's a movie." But just like Ghostbusters, they adapted the kind of gadgets that they saw in the movie and said, "We can do this in real life." And that's what they did. So later on in 2014, this is 2 years after the Paranormal Activity movie came out, Bill Chappell from Digital Dowsing started selling them on his website. He repurposed the Kinect. He called it the XCam SLS Structured Light Sensor. And he was selling it on his website for a whopping $1,200. Yes, and it was basically the Kinect. It was this. And it was wrapped up in a different 3D printed case, so you couldn't see the Kinect logo here. And it came with a handle, which is also 3D printed. And then it came with a tablet. So in April of that same year, 2014, Bill Chappell appeared on an episode of Ghost Adventures. And I believe it was the St. James Hotel episode, which was Season 8 and Episode 8. But he appeared on that episode, and he introduced it to the paranormal community. Ironically, the video clip that we get from Bill Chappell of this breakthrough with his Kinect, it's at the St. James Hotel. It's in the bar area, and we have a self-proclaimed medium sitting at the bar trying or attempting to channel some spirit. And what you don't realize, what he doesn't realize, is that on screen there's a stick figure that pops up next to him. Now, it looks like a glitch. It looks like a simple glitch because there's like a bar railing right there, right next to him, and the texture of the bar, it probably produced, it confused the software. And we'll get into that later. But the funny part is that the medium, the self-proclaimed medium, doesn't realize that this stick figure popped up, but everyone else is excited, like, oh, look, there's something there, and they use that as evidence that a ghost appeared. This is most likely a flaw in the Kinect software, which we'll get into later, but I mean, come on now. If this was really a ghost, the medium kind of messed that one up. So naturally, being on such a popular TV show among ghost hunters, that boosted the popularity of the device, and people started buying them. Ghost hunting teams made it an essential tool. You had to have one. And other manufacturers, and again, I use manufacturers in quotes, other ghost hunting gadget builder guys would put out their own version. And sometimes you would see them from like $600 or $800 or what have you, but they were a very expensive tool. So the popularity of this gadget just exploded. Everyone wanted one. Everyone had to have one. Every time I went to a ghost hunting conference, I would see groups displaying it on their booth or tables, you know, with their teams and saying, "Oh, look at all the footage that we got." You saw it on Ghost Adventures, you saw it on Ghost Hunters, you saw it on almost every kind of ghost hunting reality show. Even Ghost Brothers got in on the act in their second season. Unfortunately for the ghost hunters, the popularity of the Kinect in the real world, in the gaming world, did not follow suit with how it became popular in the ghost hunting world. And Microsoft discontinued production. So there weren't a lot left. You couldn't find them just in stores anymore, and you really had to go third-party sellers and used ones, refurbished ones. So it became much more rare to find one. So again, the price went up. However, if you really want to build one yourself, if you look around at like flea markets, yard sales, estate sales, stuff like that, you can find them. I picked this one up that I used for filming this episode. I picked it up for $5. Like $5, that's it. And then I picked up another one that I have downstairs that I'm currently taking apart. I picked that up, I think I paid $2 for it. So you can find it. And then there's an adapter for the older ones that you buy. I think that's like 15 or 20 bucks. So you plug it into your laptop, you download the software, because the software that comes with it, or that makes the Kinect work, is free from Microsoft. You can actually download it. It's open source. They made it open source. You can download it for free. Which brings up an interesting point. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know. But all these ghost hunting companies that have been selling these Kinects to ghost hunters are also selling the software that they got for free from Microsoft. And Microsoft, I mean, it clearly states on their website, personal and non-commercial use limitation. Unless otherwise specified, the services are for your personal and non-commercial use. You may not modify, copy, distribute, transmit, display, perform, reproduce, publish, license, create derivative works from, transfer, or sell any information, software, products, or services obtained from services, with a capital S, pertaining to Microsoft services. Again, I'm not a lawyer, but I don't think they're supposed to be selling this stuff. But I'll leave that up to legal. All right, so before we get into exactly how it works, I just wanted to show you the basic components. So up front here, this is the infrared emitter. And what this does, and you'll see it in a minute, this puts out like 1 billion dots. Maybe not 1 billion, but pretty close. So it puts out a whole bunch of dots. It's called a speckle pattern, and it puts it out into the environment that it's trying to read. On the other side here, this is the infrared depth sensor. So not this one, but this one. And that reads the speckle pattern that is projected by the emitter. And you'll see that in a minute. In the middle here, this is the RGB camera. It's a color camera. It was installed, it was part of the Kinect more so to encourage like video chatting through the Xbox so that Microsoft could pretty much have control over everything. But I think that's pretty much what it was. It was a color camera just to have video chatting, and that's about it that I know of. And there's also an array of 4 microphones underneath coming through here. But that's your basic components. Now, let's see what this sees.
Alright, so this is how the Xbox Kinect sees the world. Through a speckle pattern. Basically dots. That's how it sees everything. And it projects these dots 30 times a second. It looks like it's a steady stream of light, and no blinking, no flickering, nothing like that. But it's actually doing it 30 times a second. And how it measures depth, there's 2 ways actually. One is through something called time of flight. And it's measuring when, from the time it broadcasts or emits that infrared light to the time it reflects off an object and comes back to the depth sensor, which is the other camera, the infrared camera. So it's measuring that time. So reflecting off my face takes a much shorter time than reflecting off the background here. So that's determining where something is in space, or how close it is to the camera. The second way that it measures depth and objects in space is through the speckle pattern shape. So these dots, these little dots that you see on my face, and I'm going to insert another video going around my Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle, which is off to the side here. And you'll see that some of the dots look circular, which is what happens when you basically shine it off of a flat surface and it reflects back at the camera. But other ones, they distort. And this distortion is telling the camera or the software that, hey, this is going around an edge. This has a curve to it. And sometimes it's a sharp edge, or sometimes it's a very subtle edge, and it's smooth, and it's going around a little subtle. And that's how it's picking up figures. That's how it's seeing the world and what comes into it. The accuracy of these measurements by time of flight and the distortion coming back to the camera is about, I believe it's 1 centimeter left to right, and a height of 3 millimeters. So it's pretty accurate. It's pretty good, but it still makes mistakes, and we'll get into that in a second.
So what does the Kinect do with all of this information? You have the time of flight calculation. You have the distortion calculation, I guess, looking for distortions of the speckle pattern, and then it takes all this data 30 times a second. What's it do? How does it compare? Does it have a data bank? Yes, it does. It has a data bank of millions of poses from people of all different sizes and shapes, everything from different body types to gender to age to height to weight and clothing styles, hairstyles. Microsoft really did a good job with researching this. They went into hundreds of thousands, if not millions of homes, and they took pictures of people. They watched how they moved. They recorded how they moved. They also went into motion capture studios. I can't talk. And took footage of people going through the motions, actually dancing, actually doing the sports, the swinging a bat, or throwing a ball, or throwing a frisbee, bowling. All of this. They collected all this data and put it in a data bank so that the software would have something to compare it to. So, in the end, just summing up how it works, it basically takes all the information from the infrared speckle pattern. It sees the environment in 3D. It sees depth, it sees curves, it sees where edges are, and it creates that 3D environment. And then it compares what it sees, which is, well, it compares what's supposed to be walking in as a player. It's supposed to be a person walking into the scene, and says, okay, this is a new shape, this is coming in, this kind of matches the pictures and video that I have, so I'm going to assign it a stick figure. And the stick figure is what we see in the games and the software that's coming up, and what players use for the Xbox to be the avatar. But when they don't follow the rules set up by Xbox, by Microsoft, and they go about breaking the rules, you're going to get anomalies. You're going to get anomalies that shouldn't be there, but they show up because there's going to be mistakes. There's going to be mistakes made by the software, because this is another thing that the software actually has to make guesses. Because imagine when you're dancing, and I'll show a clip here of yours truly dancing. And you can see, as I'm dancing around, I'm turning. My body is turning, and my arms and my legs are being hidden as I turn sideways. You can't see it. Neither can the sensor. Neither can the Kinect. So when it's in situations like that, it has to make a guess, and it anticipates where your arm or leg will be and where it will come out. And it does this again 30 times a second. But when you're not actually playing a game and you're just walking around a haunted house, it's going to make the same mistakes. It's going to mistake furniture and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles as figures. And it's going to assign a stick figure to it, and you're going to have this thing. And the stick figure is going to be there, and it's going to be like weird because the software is confused. It's not sure what's going on. It's seeing something that looks like a person, but it's not a person. And that's why you're going to have these hands and legs going all over the place. You're going to see it on the video. I'm going to probably put an insert right here, and you'll see some, or I'll put it on the screen. But let's get right into the main mistakes that ghost hunters make. All right, so one of the biggest mistakes, probably the primary mistake that ghost hunters make when they get their SLS camera, their Kinect camera, and they start going out on their ghost hunts with it, is that it comes with a handle. So most of these builders, these ghost hunting gadget companies, they sell a kit where it has the Kinect, it has a tablet on the back, and it's got a little platform with a handle, and it's got a portable battery, so you can walk around with it. And as you can see from the Microsoft Xbox directions, this is the manual for the Kinect. It tells you you have to have it on a stable surface. And that's so it can look around and it can see the environment and it can know what is in the environment, what is supposed to be stable and stationary and not move. The only thing that should be moving are the players. So when you're going around, moving around with this, walking around, constantly moving, the Xbox is adjusting. It's trying to adjust 30 times a second based on what it thinks is a stationary scene. Let that sink in. It's supposed to be a stationary scene with only the players moving around or walking into the scene and being recognized as players. So as you're moving this around, and I'm going to insert some video from this just going around. Actually, it's just going to be my laptop screen. But as you can see, the entire scene moves. Every time this moves, the scene moves. So anything that's in that scene, from furniture to backpacks to tripods to lamps to decorations, sofas, what else? Trash bags. I've had trash bags set off stick figures or assign a stick figure to a trash bag, all because this is constantly moving. And that's rule number one is being broken. You can't have this just roaming around. You can't have it moving around. That's just, it's in the manual. So besides not carrying it around, which is a major rule breaker, the other thing is the manual tells you you really need an open space. You need a safe space to play because this is developed for games, not for finding ghosts, because nothing has been developed to actually find ghosts. Nothing. But getting back to the Kinect, you need a clear space. You need a good 6 to 8 feet wide space at the very least, free of furniture so that players can move around because they're going to be dancing, they're going to be jumping around. If they're playing sports, they're going to pretend like they're bowling, they're going to be pretending like they're swinging a bat or what have you. That's a lot. You need a lot of space. And every ghost hunting show that I've seen, every ghost hunting team that I've seen using the Kinect does not adhere to this rule. They have, when they go to private houses, there's furniture everywhere, just like what you see in this room here. I don't have anywhere near enough space to properly set up a Kinect because there's just too much stuff in here. But you also see the same thing with ghost investigations and TV shows where they're going in people's houses and there's furniture and decorations and all kinds of stuff, including people, all over the place. There is no clear space. So that's 2 strikes. So the third mistake that I see ghost hunters make a lot is when they get a stick figure popping up on their screen. So they have the Kinect either on the handle and they're walking around with it, or it's on a tripod, and suddenly a stick figure pops up. And the mistake is that they assume that it's a ghost. They assume that it's some invisible entity that only the Kinect can see, and they can't see it, nor any of their other infrared cameras that they use, because most of them use like surveillance cameras and DVR systems that have cameras that can see infrared light, which would be able to see if there was a ghost that was being detected by the Kinect that uses infrared light. Do you see where I'm going with this? One of the biggest issues I have with this, when they do have a stick figure show up on screen, is that that stick figure is anchored to one spot. If it shows up on a couch, or if it shows up on a chair, it's anchored to that couch or that chair. So maybe the arms of the stick figure will flail about, maybe the feet or legs will kick out and act all crazy, like they're dangling or something. But the entirety of the stick figure, the body of the stick figure, does not leave that anchored spot. It just stays there. And that's telling me that it's that piece of furniture, or it's that wall decoration, or that fixture, or something that has to do with the environment, not a invisible entity. All the videos that I've watched from ghost hunters that say this is absolute evidence, or this is great evidence of a ghost caught by the Kinect, this is the scenario. The stick figure is always anchored to one spot. It never moves. And when I suggest, hey, tell it to move somewhere else, not just dangle a hand or move a foot, because it's going to do that anyway. And the reason it does that is because the software is confused. It's seeing something that looks like a figure, it thinks it's a figure, and it assigns it. And you can see in some of the footage that I did that, here's footage that I took, and this is Mikey, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle. And you can see over the course of 5 minutes, he doesn't move, because he's an action figure, like a life-size action figure, but he doesn't move at all. Yet the feet constantly move. That's telling you that the software is confused. It doesn't know what's going on here. It's a little like, what's going on? I don't know. And it just, that's the product. That's the end result of that anomaly, that mistaken identity or confusion from the software. And what I always suggest for ghost hunters is that they ask their spirit to move across the room. Like if it's anchored right here, if Thor back here is the stick figure, ask Thor to move over to here with Stitch. Make it move across the entire scene of the screen. And that would be impressive to me, but it never happens. Never happens. So I do have a lot of ghost hunters ask about when they have the Kinect on a tripod and suddenly a stick figure pops up and then it disappears and then it pops up again. What's going on there? And again, it's looking at the environment that is supposed to be clear of furniture and knickknacks and all kinds of stuff. But the scenes that I encounter when people bring me footage, it's not clear of anything. There's crap all over the place, just like I have in the background. There's crap everywhere. So the Kinect, again, 30 times a second, it's looking at that environment, and sometimes it sees something and it's like, oh, well, I'm not sure, and it assigns a stick figure. Maybe a change of lighting, because lighting can affect how it sees the environment. Because in Microsoft's manual for the Xbox Kinect, it tells you to keep it out of direct sunlight. And I've also noticed, and I'll put some footage up here, where using an infrared light, just a standalone infrared light, and shining it on an object such, I think this is a vacuum cleaner that I have a stick figure on, because the Kinect mistook a vacuum cleaner for a person. But when I shine the infrared light on it, it disappears. It goes away. So infrared light is very popular in the ghost hunting community. They use it for almost all of their night vision cameras, and it's going to be there. They're going to have flashlights or just video lights, just using infrared, which will mess up the speckle pattern that the Kinect puts out, therefore messing up how it sees the environment. So because of changing lighting conditions, or just the state of confusion that the software is in, it could have a stick figure pop up in random areas, just pop in and out, or pop up in one corner and then pop up in another corner, depending on how much crap you have in that scene. So clean up. All right, so that's about it. We can wrap this up. I mean, we covered where it came from, how it was developed, how ghost hunters got into claiming this as their own. But in the end, we really have to ask ourselves, did Microsoft stumble upon, the breakthrough of the century by developing a device that can see ghosts? No! No, it did not. All it did was develop something for a gaming console, and there were flaws. There were flaws that were exploited by certain people so they could profit off of it and have another gadget to put on TV that make them look scientific when they're not. With all the flaws that are associated with this and the misinterpretation and mishandling by ghost hunters when they're using this thing, trying to, find ghosts, it's no wonder that they eventually do find a ghost in the machine. Ooh, you like that? How I got the title back into it? That's all for this episode. Thanks for stopping by and watching. Hope you learned something. And remember, never stop learning. I'll see you next time.